All right. Well, welcome to our November Masterclass. I am excited to be doing these. This is something that is a continuation of training from Melissa and Rebecca. And so I just want to share it with y'all each month. They do it with us, and then we get to share what we learn with all of you. So let me share my screen, and we're going to get going here. All right. So you should be seeing the PowerPoint. Um, Cindy, can you unmute and let me know if you see that? If you see the PowerPoint on your screen, you just tap your screen and unmute to let me know. I just want to make sure. Okay,
Yes, I
so
do. I see it.
okay, very good. All right, so this month's masterclass is on the power of persistence. And we're going to talk about something called failure tolerance. Now, this was a new term for me. I had never heard of this term. But first of all, I want to talk about some of our team soundtracks. Okay. So, our team, we have different like phrases, slogans, buzzwords that we have. We've all heard us say everything's figure outable. Obviously, our team name is Together We Rise. What you focus on expands. We have a no one starts alone policy. Like these are some of the things that are our soundtracks for our team. But you can have a soundtrack and listen to it all day long. But if we're not taking those um, soundtracks or, different songs as off the soundtrack and putting them to work, then, we're never going to get anywhere, basically. All right. So, first of all, let me ask you this. What is one thing that's holding you back from reaching your goals? Um, Today, we're going to dive into a concept that has the potential to change your perspective. And if you change your perspective, I believe you can change your life. But sometimes it's just a matter of addressing, like, what is it holding me back? So, our brains are wired to regret two things. One, you can regret something you did that turned out badly. Obviously, we probably all had some of those things in our life. Or you can regret something we didn't do, like a missed opportunity or those what ifs. And you might think that the pain of failure would cause the most regret, but it's actually the missed opportunities that those tend to haunt us the most. Sometimes we don't take action. When we don't take action, our brain doesn't have a clear outcome to process. So instead, it cycles through endless possibilities, leaving us stuck wondering what could have been, the what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda, that kind of thing. This is why people on their deathbeds often talk about what they didn't do. They don't talk about their failures. They're like, I wish I would have done this, or I, regret that I didn't make that phone call, or, kindle that relationship with a family member. Like the fear of lifelong regret should be more terrifying than the fear of failure. So, failure tolerance. This was a term I had never heard until I took this training myself, but it actually is the key to success. In the book Failing Forward, John Maxwell asks, if your perception of and response to failure were changed, what would you attempt to achieve? So that's what we're focusing on today, failure tolerance. Some of us have a low tolerance to failure. You give up too easily, but like just quit, like that was too hard, or I'm too busy, whatever, giving up too easily. But failure intolerance can cost you your dreams. So, like when you tell yourself something isn't possible, you avoid taking risk, and that leads to stagnation. So, we need to be okay with failing. Failure tolerance is a muscle that we have to build. Too many people quit on their dreams too soon. John Maxwell also says one of the greatest problems people have with failure is that they're too quick to judge isolated situations as failures. Instead, they need to keep the bigger picture in mind. This mindset's crucial in our kind of business. We can't focus on one isolated failure. We have to look at that bigger picture. So a lot of times it's the results, right? We want the result, but not the process. Whether that's we want the result of making more money, but we don't want to deal with the process of that. We want the result of losing weight, but the process of that is, too hard, or ranking up in the company to be a better spouse or a parent or a leader. Too often we just want it to be easy, but unfortunately, that's just not how it goes. We want the result without the process. We don't want to fail. We just want to get there. Like, I want to do it. I don't want any kind of setbacks or failures. But sometimes that's that mentality is what holds us back. All right. We're basically taught to avoid failure. We're conditioned to avoid failure as if it's the worst thing that could happen. But what if we're taught differently? What if failure wasn't the end, but the beginning, the moment where we learn what we don't know? So imagine if we were raised to embrace failure, accumulate it, and use it as a stepping stone to success. How much more could we achieve? Failure is like growth fertilizer. Like, the more you fail, the more you grow. I love this one. We got to pour some fear on it, right? Because failing is scary, but that's how we grow, right? So many of us are waiting for someone to tell us how to succeed, but the answer is already out there. Just like our team always says, everything's figure outable. I've got a little sign back here on my desk that says that. Peace. Sorry, I have to squirt my dogs. So we have to figure out how to succeed with our circumstances. So, everybody has different circumstances. We have to stop being the victim and start taking radical responsibility for our life. So my circumstances are different than, Cindy's circumstances or Tiffany's circumstance. Like, everybody's circumstances are different, like with what the things that are going on in our lives on a daily basis. But we have to figure out how to succeed with our own circumstances. How do we do that? By doing. You have to get into activity. So if you know you need to share your products and business with others, or you know you need to get some duplication going on your team and get some momentum, you've got to take action. We have to stop being the victim and start taking that responsibility for our life. So if you say you can't succeed, you're not a victim of your circumstances. You're actually a victim of your own thinking. Because here's the truth. There's someone out there busier than you, more overwhelmed, has more challenges, but they're doing the dang thing, right? Maybe they have sick family members, they have multiple jobs, health issues, but they're pushing through it. So they're taking their circumstances, but they're still finding a way. And so that's what we all basically need to do. So we got to ask ourselves, like, what's my excuse? What am I focusing on? Remember, one of our other team soundtracks is what you focus on expands. So if you focus on why you can't, then that's exactly what's going to happen. You're not going to do it because you're focusing on the wrong things. True progress comes from learning and by doing. So you have to embrace that failure. Failure tolerance leads to action, and action leads to success. I'm telling you all of this because I've lived it. I've failed many times, but each time I failed, it taught me something, valuable, something that I could take away and grow and, change in the next circumstance. So I'll encourage you all to think about your own tolerance for failure. Like, how tolerant are you? Do you allow failure? And do you allow it to cripple you? Or do you say, okay, well, that didn't work. Let me try something different. All right. So I want you to ask yourself, when you fail, does it motivate you to try again? Or do you just avoid failure altogether by just not taking action? Because if you're avoiding failure, then I can assure you, you're going to stay stagnant. So people with a high failure tolerance are the ones jumping into new opportunities. There's the ones that say, bring it on, whether it's the Fast Start program, um, getting people in the Reset Challenge, the incentive, the cruise. It's a bring it on mentality. That's if you have a high failure tolerance. You're like, you know what? I'm going to go for this goal. I might not hit it, but I'm going for it. So, we basically need to set big goals. And even if you fail, when you so if you set a low realistic goal and hit it, honestly, you're just playing small. Like well, I'm going to try to enroll 2 this month. Well, our monthly incentive this month is you get extra $200 if you enroll 4. So set a goal of 4. If you get 3, great. You have to basically stop playing small, setting small goals, because you're never going to hit the bigger goal if you don't set it and go for it. Let's see, this says, if you never fail, you'll never know your limits. Push yourself to failure to know what you're capable of. If you set your goal too low and you hit it, you'll never know what could have been, because you never push yourself to that failing point. When you set a goal that you most likely will fail at doing, you will instead hit at the point. Wait, what does that say? You will instead hit at the point that is your limit in that moment. Okay. So the reason I encourage you to increase your failure tolerance is because failure itself is harmless. The worst thing that can happen is you feel an emotion. Maybe you feel sadness or embarrassment, or maybe you kind of get down on yourself. But emotions are temporary. They're not going to harm you. And the more you fail, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the closer you get to success. When you embrace failure, you take action. You have energy behind your goals because you're not paralyzed by the fear of failing. But when you avoid failure, you procrastinate, which leads to stagnation. So how do you start thinking, like, where would I rank myself in my failure tolerance on a scale of 1 to 10? And then let's say you say, well, I'm about a 5. Well, my challenge is increase that. Increase your failure tolerance. So you'll never know your limits unless you push yourself to them, right? So you have to kind of think about these things. Like, does failure ignite you? Like, if you miss a goal, you're like, well, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to go for it harder next time. Does failure cause you to do more, try more things, or does it cause you to quit and stop taking action? Because I can promise you, if you're still deciding, like, let me decide, am I going to go for that? Or let me decide if I really want to work towards this cruise, or let me decide if I'm going to go for that rank this month or try to enroll 4 people. If you're just in that deciding mode, you're avoiding. That's what it basically boils down to. And trust me, I'm preaching to the choir here. We've got to get into massive activity. So we need to think about those months when we did reach a big goal, when we did hit a rank, when we did have our highest points. What were we doing then that we're not doing now? Imagine if you'd never had a month where you reached your highest points or rank. Where would your points be today? Like, that was pretty eye-opening to me. Like, if I had never had a month where I reached my highest points, because I reached that, but obviously my points have fallen backwards. If I had never gotten there and I was still having the falling backwards, where would I be now? So if your reason not to is what you focus on, then you basically have to be okay with staying where we're at. We have got to get into activity, like I was saying, and do the things that we were doing on the months when we had massive growth, massive momentum. So I love this Thomas Edison quote. It says, many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. If you can change the way you see failure, you can gain the strength to keep running the race. I'm talking about planning, executing, learning from your failures. That's what it means to fail forward. High achievers aren't deterred by problems or setbacks. They don't view failures as the end, they just see them as part of the journey. So I want us to stop tolerating stagnation, push our limits, stop avoiding failure, and instead just embrace it. Because the more you fail, the closer you'll get to success. Success is not what moves us forward. The attempts move us forward. So what would you be willing to do if you weren't afraid to fail? I want you to think about that. Like, if you were like, you know what? I'm going to go for this rank or this point goal, or I'm going to work to earn this cruise or this monthly incentive. And this doesn't always just apply to our Plexus businesses. What would you be afraid, or what would you be willing to work towards in your personal life if you weren't afraid of failing? We've got to increase our failure tolerance and be okay with failing. All right, so that is our masterclass for today. I want you to mark your calendars. Next month, we're going to talk about using success surveys. These are things like JotForm, where you can make a survey for people to fill out, and using that as a funnel in our sales engine. I learned a lot when I took that masterclass, and I'm really excited to pour that into y'all. It's going to be on a Monday night. Christmas is upon us, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas. So I'm going to do it on a Monday night, basically right after our normal team call at 7. We'll hop on at 8 for the December masterclass. So make sure you mark your calendars for December 16th, 8 p.m. Central Time. And I hope you'll all be on there. So I hope this was helpful in making us think through some things. It really made me think something. And one of the things they said that I put a big star beside when I took this master class: has God ever opened a door to something that could have been a big game changer to your family, your business, and you didn't walk through the door? Like, we potentially all have this open door that God has opened for us, and we're just not doing the things and walking through it. So I want you to think about that and start thinking about what you'd be willing to do if you weren't afraid to fail.